your episode 2 and the person that did episode 1 all scored pretty high for us. So,
oh shit. Yeah, no pressure. Okay, that's cool.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Listography. Jason, Joe, and Cramser, and Dylan Sevey. Welcome to the channel. Dylan is a musician. He's not a YouTuber. So we are really reeling in the rock stars now. He is from Nashville, and he will tell you about all of the things that you should know about that he does.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. Yeah, I live here in Nashville. I'm from Rhode Island originally, but I currently play with a band called the Minks. I, for 3 years, played with Gallo, who's on New West Records. Played a little bit with Lee Tasjan, including, I think, 6 songs on his newest record. Just came out on New West as well. A songwriter. I put out stuff whenever I have money to do so, which is never. So there's very little of that out there. But yeah, I'll play really with whoever will have me. And just want to say real quick that it is an honor to be on with you guys. I love the channel. And I always look forward to seeing who I side with most on any given video, because you've all had moments where I've been close to standing up and cheering in approval, between Jason never being afraid to take a controversial stance, including the correct opinion that Carl and the Passion So Tough is a top 5 Beach Boys record. Joe for having the guts to stand up for Evil Urges, which is the most unfairly and mind-bogglingly maligned record. And Cram for being the true voice of the people and calling out Billy Joel on all his bullshit, which mostly made up for the time that you called Damn the Torpedoes, and I quote, a mediocre Heartland rock album. But that's another conversation for another day.
And just to clarify on the new, you drum on the new record, right?
The new Erin Tasjan record. I'm on 6 of the 11 tracks. Yes.
All right. So here's how this works. If you did not see the first episode of this little game show that we've created, this is basically competitive music recommending. We each share 5 records with each other that kind of summarize our own taste in music. Not necessarily our top 5, but just kind of hit on all the different aspects of things we like. And then we take those lists, and Joe, Cram, and myself each recommend a record to Dylan, and he recommends a record to each of us. Then we go away, we listen to those records, we come back. We give the records that he recommends to us a star rating, and we rank them compared to our other contestants. So far, we only have one other. Shannon was on. So we will say if we like it more or less than Shannon's recommendation, and you will choose a favorite as well from our 3. So quick reminder of what our 5 records were that we are using to kind of guide people in the right direction. For me, I've got the White Album, Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, Todd Rundgren, Something Anything, Wilco's Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, and Dinosaur Jr.'s Where You Been. Cram?
So I went with the Bends. I'm the resident Radiohead is Religion kind of guy. I've also got Love Is Hell by Ryan Adams to get a more modern singer-songwriter that's also kind of down in the dumps, which is where I operate a lot. And then I've got singer-songwriter from the 70s with just amazing 70s production, Elton John's Honky Chateau, and also a great just performance vocally. Wanted to get some 80s in there with some flair, so I went with Purple Rain by Prince. And then finally, my second favorite album ever, I went with Tommy by The Who, just to get some amazing, just huge vision of an album. And, you know, there's just amazing playing on it and something a little different that I'm not always just about the pop songs and the songwriting. You can have a big, expansive sort of instrumental kind of approach to something. And yeah, so I thought that was a good 5. Not my favorite 5, but a good representation.
For mine, I have Whatever and Ever Amen by Ben Folds, covers all the wise ass sort of piano playing, Elvis Costello, Joe Jackson, Ben Folds. I got Purple Rain from Prince because Prince is God. I got Physical Graffiti from Led Zeppelin. maybe my favorite album of all time. Pretty much, surmises all 70s hard rock. I got Angel Dust from Faith No More because it's really weird, heavy, and Mike Patton just has a ridiculous voice, and I just love how weird and off the wall he is. And finally, bringing it back to the pop sphere, I got Talking Book by Stevie Wonder, another piano guy, but R&B, soul. I love Motown. I love that sort of style. So yeah, he's a good one for me. So those are my 5 to go off of.
Well, since I initially got in touch with Jason because I'm writing a book about the Beatles solo records, and I set up a bunch of streams in order of Tom Petty's birthday. So I didn't include those artists since my feelings towards them are pretty obvious. I chose Highway 61 by Bob Dylan, my second favorite artist of all time. Could have named 4 or 5 other records of his, but Highway 61 is the perfect blend of his songwriting with that ramshackle mid-60s rock sound. Yeah, it might be my favorite record of his, I'm not sure, but for this seemed appropriate. Next, I went with Elephant by the White Stripes, band I'm much higher on than you 3. I think that one achieves the perfect blend of everything that makes them great, between blues and classic rock influences, solid songwriting, great production. So y'all can take your 3.5-star ratings and shove it. Next, I went with self-titled record by the band, which Jason correctly placed at the top of his listography. Not that Music for Big Big isn't fantastic, but I mean, a lot of my favorite albums of all time tend to include some element of diversity. And I mean, that record, between the 3 main vocalists, the different styles that they tackle, it's brilliant. It's perfect. Went with Ghost is Born by Wilco, most because I want to see the look on Joe's face when I talk about how great Wilco is. Again, could have named 4 other records of theirs, but that one kind of, I think, marries the brilliance of Yankee Hotel with sort of that power pop love fest, that Summer Teeth. You get the experimental stuff on Handshake Drugs, I'm a Wheel, joyous melodies. Just a really dynamic record. And last one was tough, but I went with Excitable Boy by Warren Zevon. It's distinctly different from the other 4 records I chose. And even though it might sound like a straightforward rock singer-songwriter record to a lot of people, there's a lot going on. It's got its extremely warped sense of humor, devastating emotionalism, and that classic dry 70s production really works to its advantages, balance between the pianos and guitars. There's a lot with it that resonates with me. So those were the ones I went with.
All right. So I will start with the recommending this time. I've got a record for Dylan that I think is a home run. I said it at the end of the episode with Shannon. I feel real confident about this episode. I've got a record called Busting Visions by Zeus. That is, I have talked about Zeus a little on the channel before. I had one of their records in my albums of the year, but not this one. This one is more 70s than the one that I chose. If you're talking about dry production, I think this has got that. I also think the guitar tones, though, are a little modern, maybe a little bit White Stripesy, maybe, kind of. And I just think the harmonies and the way they write, and I just think it's going to be right up your alley.
Yeah, that's not a band I'm familiar with at all. So I'm looking forward to checking that out. And for Jason, it was difficult to narrow down. I thought of a lot of ones for all of you, but I also feel pretty confident with this one. I chose a record by Pete Droge called Spacey and Shaken. Fans of the film Dumb and Dumber might know Pete Droge for his song in that film, If You Don't Love Me, I'll Kill Myself. So when Cram inevitably does his filmography offshoot channel, I would love to discuss that on the Jim Carrey episode. Other people, Jason probably knows him from the Thorns supergroup he was in with Matthew Sweet and Sean Mullins in the early 2000s. He's always kind of on the outskirts of the mainstream. He opened for Petty and some other bigger acts in the 90s, but he never really achieved major popularity. But this record from 1998, it's just solidly written, performed as anything else, I think, in that time period. Brendan O'Brien produced it, but it's not as unnecessarily dense as some other Brendan O'Brien records. I've always kind of said it's the best like pseudo psychedelic record that the Heartbreakers never made. I'm feeling pretty confident on this one too, but we'll see who wins this battle.
Cool. I do know the Thorns. I had that record, that CD, and very unlike me, I didn't go back and listen to all the Pete Droge records after that. So I'm excited to check it out.
All right, my recommendation was Widow Speaks Plum, which is a really nice kind of relaxed, moody, hollow and glowy. It's almost got like a 90s pop rock kind of approach, but has sort of like some just a little bit of like early 70s psychedelic kind of vibes to it, just with its atmosphere. And I like that, knowing that you're a big Tom Petty fan. I think Tom Petty's really good at bringing in these grand sort of ideas and dilemmas into like smaller moments in livelihood, which I think this album's kind of about. It's a lot of talk about like death, but everything's like really nuanced and brought back down. And the whole album is just a really nice kind of relaxing breeze that has really nice like little details of playing. It's not like a hugely dynamic show off album by any means, but it's really hard to dislike. So, and it was hard to just think of something that maybe you haven't heard, which is a problem in this entire show because we're all pretty big music geeks. So it gets a little tough.
Yeah, it's Jason privately was saying the same thing because he talks about people on this channel that I know here in town and have played with before. But I know of Widow Speak. I think one of my friends' bands toured with them a couple years ago, but I don't think I've ever heard a single song. So really looking forward to checking them out. I love their band name, especially. For you, Cram, I decided to go with a record that I know Jason's a fan of, and I was close to recommending it to Joe as well, which is Loner by Caroline Rose. Caroline is just out of this world talented songwriter, musician. Her earlier work is kind of steeped in folk and Americana, and it's also great, but she flipped what she was doing and she made this insanely awesome pop record. Modern pop is not a genre I'm super into. I know that you are, but if there were more people doing this in the mainstream, I'd be ecstatic. Her soundscapes are kind of sparse instrumentally, but everything is integrated perfectly. The mix is always perfect. Her melodies are as good as anyone else, and the lyrics are so smart and unique. Every song I think is a banger in one way or another. And I know that you're a big fan of right to the point, short, sweet pop songs, solid melody, solid lyrics, while appreciating just the overall craft. I mean, if Tommy is your second favorite album overall, I mean, talk about finding the right place for every single instrument while using kind of very little. I mean, there's a lot of those songs are just one guitar, bass, drums, and maybe a keyboard overdub. So again, I feel confident here. I think you'll really dig this one a lot.
Yeah, I know zero Caroline Rose albums, songs, or even like publicity. Don't even like, kind of just glossed over when I look over lists. But I'm a little worried because if Jason really likes it, it makes me think it's just some overrated singer-songwriter has pedal steel on it maybe, but we'll see.
I can safely say no pedal steel on this record, maybe on some of her older records. But like I said, I was close to recommending it to Joe. The album that I recommended to Joe, I was kind of going back and forth for both of you. But I went with this, so fear not. I think you'll be happy here.
Well, it's a good thing you didn't recommend it to me because I do know it, but I also like it, so it would have been a good choice. So you're on the right track there.
I'm definitely going to hate it.
Yeah, that should worry Crams there. I don't know. We'll see. All right. For my pick, I chose For Dylan. And this is a bit of a Hail Mary on my part. I shot for the stars, I think. I got Last of the Country Gentlemen by Josh T. Pearson. I basically just ignored your list completely and decided I was just going to pick this one because it's a really dividing record. You're probably either going to really love it or just think it's just unlistenable. It's tormented.
I feel confident.
Confessional. I mean, maybe there's some like Dylan, if you like took away his whole band, it was just him on stage alone, basically him, his vocals. He's a better singer than Dylan, don't worry about that. But just like sparse guitar, long stretches of just him just singing his guts out. And it's really interesting. I don't even know how much I like it, but I felt like it's one of those records that you could really love if you haven't heard it before. So we'll see. It could be just a complete mess.
You have done a sufficient job of making me feel comforted, and I'm happy that you care that much about me to put so much thought into it. I've never, I can't say I've ever heard his name before. So what year is the record from?
It is 2011.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely not ever been on my radar. I hope for your sake that you're right here, because otherwise one of these guys is going to have more bragging rights over you. But for you, I am choosing When I Think of You in a Castle by Post Animal. A lot of people know about this band solely because one of their members used to be Joe Keery, who played Steve in Stranger Things. But they deserve to be known because they're a killer rock and roll band. I mean, a lot of psychedelic prog influences. I hear some Tame Impala, King Crimson, Steely Dan, King Gizzard, sometimes all in the same song, but it never sounds disjointed or unfocused. And I think the way that they blend these sounds and influences together is pretty original. I was lucky to tour with them a couple years ago. And I got to watch them every night for a month, and they are so stupidly talented. I think all three of you would enjoy this record, at least for the prog element of it. But looking down your list, Joe, I mean, you more so, I know obviously all three of you are, rock and roll kids, but you especially really dig into some of the heavier stuff. And not that this is like a metal record or anything like that, but there's some pretty heavy stuff in there. And I feel much more confident in my pick for you than you seem to be in your pick for me. So,
well, I love Steve Harrington, aka Joe Keery, aka Steve Harrington, and I knew he was in a rock band, but I did not know it was Post Animal, and I had never heard Post Animal before. So that's very interesting. I'm excited now.
I've definitely heard some of their songs, but I don't think I've ever done a whole album because they're a Chicago band. They're local here. So I know I've heard the name thrown around and checked them out, but never went all the way through. So, but yeah, Stranger Things rules, and he's great in it.
All right. Well, those are the picks. We're going to go listen to them, and we will be right back. Let you know what we think. We are back. We have checked out all of the records that we have recommended to each other. And let's get into it. Who wants to go first? Joe?
Yeah, I can go first. Dylan, for me, recommended Post Animal, When I Think of You in a Castle. Famously, formerly Joe Keery of Stranger Things, Steve Harrington of Stranger Things, who we all love, was in this band, which I'd never heard. I knew he was in a band, but I had never gone ahead and listened to said band, because when celebrities are in bands, you gotta, tread lightly. You don't want like a dog star situation on our hands. But I'm happy to report those fears are unfounded. This was a great album. I really enjoyed it. You described it well. You said a little Tame Impala, a little prog. Definitely hear that. There was I think the Chicago Tribune said, think if Tame Impala listened to a lot of Black Sabbath. Definitely a little Black Sabbath in there, a little prog, but I also got some hints of Asia, who I love. There's cheesier prog, but there's some really nice pop kind of influence in here. I heard some ELO, little Jeff Lynne in here as well, which I really liked. I loved, sometimes with prog, you can get real dark and sort of, too just instrumental and too into it that way. Tracks like Gelatin Mode, they're so much sunnier, which I really liked. Like it's prog and it's, great guitar and drums and bass, and the playing is all great, complex stuff. But they have this nice, like almost power pop, influence that creeps in there that I really liked. So I really dug it. It's a 4-star album for me. And now I got to check out their other album, although I did hear that Joe Keery's no longer in the band, which kind of makes me sad. But
he is
which is okay, because they do apparently, from what I read, they switch around everything a lot. So it was hard to tell who is singing what. So I don't know how like instrumental he was to the band, but I think they'll be okay without him. Hopefully.
Yeah, by the time that I was on tour with them, he was not touring with them. But listening to the album and hearing them live, I would have never had any, so he sings Gelatin Mode, he sings Ralphie, but everyone who does those tunes live in the band, they crush it. Really, really happy you enjoyed it. I had a strong feeling about it. Again, Jason and Cram, I think you'll both really dig it too if you check it out. Yeah, like it's just, I think you hit it on the head. They never lose sight of the melody or the hook, which is easy for a lot of prog bands to do. It's not necessarily the point of prog music, and I don't think they strictly consider themselves a prog band, but you know, every song there's kind of something to grab onto, which I also dig. So Joe recommended to me The Last of the Country Gentlemen by Josh T. Pearson, which he lovingly referred as a Hail Mary, and a Hail Mary it was. This record is 7 songs long and over an hour long. It seemed like 5 of the 7 tracks, I think, are over 10 minutes long. And other than some string accompaniment on some of the songs, it is just him and guitar. So definitely a bold choice. And that is, you know, I commend you on that. I had a bit of a tough time with it, I will say. I am not at all adverse to long songs or stripped down production, but these songs were a little hard to get through. You know, maybe if he had more of a vocal range, or if the chord progressions and melodies were a little more varied, I might have had an easier time with it. And the focus is obviously supposed to be inspired, or the focus is supposed to be on the songwriting. I believe, reading up on it, he wrote this during and after a really, really difficult breakup or divorce. And you can hear that. I mean, it's a lot of these songs are cries of pain, cries out for help. And some of them are really good. I wrote down how you bring your gifts to me, tied up and bound in their bows of pink, and gently place them at my feet like I'm some dying Christmas tree. I mean, fantastic writing. But, you know, at a certain point, I need a little more than just lyrics. I need some melody. I need some different soundscapes or styles. And as good as some of the lyrics are, I don't find them consistently gripping. It's very clearly emotional and genuine, and I recognize and appreciate the artistry of it, but I would say that I appreciate it more so than I enjoy it. If I was ranking it objectively, I might give it 3.5 stars out of 5, but for my own personal taste, it's probably more of a 2.5 at best. Very hard to get all the way through twice, which I tried to listen to everything at least twice, and that was about all I could do.
I should have gone for something a little more melodic and maybe upbeat, but
yeah, I mean,
swing for the fences.
Yeah, I mean, music, again, it doesn't need to be necessarily extremely melodic. I mean, there's a lot of Bob Dylan stuff I love that isn't terribly melodic or terribly upbeat. It's just, you know, I think I do generally go for diversity, and there's just not a whole hell of a lot of it here. And if it's not diverse, it has to at least be consistently gripping. And yeah, appreciate the songwriting, but the Hail Mary fell short. Your Steelers have lost again, assuming that you are a Steelers fan, which if you are, I am sorry.
Well, thank God, because he won the first episode, so this is gonna.
Well, you know, someone had to knock him back down there.
Yeah,
Joe, it's 3rd and 1, and he doesn't run the ball. He just launch.
I did a Pete Carroll. I threw the slant over the middle instead of handing it off to beast mode.
And as a Patriots fan, I appreciate that, because it gives me an opportunity to just really hold this over your head for the rest of time.
All right, I guess it's my turn. So episode 1, Shannon knocked my pick out of the park. I rated At the Cut by Vic Chestnut 4 stars. So setting the bar pretty high. What Dylan has given me is Loner by Caroline Rose. I put this on and the first thought I had was, I hate this damn vocal effect. I hate it. I hate the distortion. It never makes anything as pure or as pretty as it could be. So I was like, oh, great start. And then after that, I found almost no complaints whatsoever. So this one was pretty darn good, fun, indie band kind of vibes, but more like focus on the songwriting. The lyrics on this are really good. They're clever and cute, funny at times. The song Money is very quirky, very odd. It's got like that cool like surfer / spy guitar riff on it. Janine Becomes a Mom is just fabulous. Easily my favorite song on the album. I love the keys sound on this. Sounds like a really just like sharp, pristine, like to a point, like almost carnival kind of sound to it. One little problem I had in the middle of it was To Die Today, which I think on its own is a really good song, but it really brought my kind of like created a bit of a bummer mood to it, which I didn't think the album needed because very summery, very upbeat, very easily approachable. Then pick up with Soul and 5, great party vibes. We're going out tonight. Bikini is a really cool song. I love the lyrics where it's like, put some shots in it and call it a martini and then put on your little bikini and dance. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, the playing was just tastefully done, not too much. I also have this at 4 stars. Good pick, my friend.
I did feel very good about it. You made my heart stop there with the vocals for a second, but I understand what you're talking about. The vocal effect doesn't bother me, but it's definitely a stylistic thing I can understand. Yeah, Caroline is a total psychopath in all the best ways. I mean, she personally and musically, I love her to death. I love her songwriting. I love her whole vibe. If all pop music sounded like her, I would love it all the time. Though I do love the new Olivia Rodrigo record, but we can talk about that another time. But yeah, I'm glad you liked it. Cram, for me, you recommended the album Plum by Widowspeak, which came out last year. Again, a band I had heard of, but never heard. There's the first time I listened through to this record, I listened to it on headphones. And then the second time through, I listened to it while I was driving. And it was almost like 2 very different experiences. I took 2 very different things out of it. Definitely that clear, dry production. Doesn't necessarily sound like the 70s, but harkens back to that. It's never too busy at all. And I really, really dig that. I was bad at doing research and forgot to look up the musicians' names, but the bassist, lead guitarist, and drummer, whoever they are on this record, are fantastic, especially songs like The Good Ones. Unbelievable bass line, great guitar work, close mic drum sound that really does a lot of favors for it, a lot of dynamics in it. And then Money, we both happen to pick albums for each other with a track called Money on it. Again, bass work carries it so much dynamically. The way that the acoustic guitar and the keys trickle in is really, really solid. And probably tied for my favorite song with The Good Ones is the closing track, Y2K. The addition of the electronic drums and backwards guitars is kind of a surprise after a pretty straightforward, I would say, first however many songs, but a welcome addition. It's nice to have it switched up there at the end. Piano is fantastic. Throughout the record, though, I would say I'm not super hot on her voice. She sings very much in that kind of mid to late 90s shoegazy dream pop, breathy voice, which is not always my bag, but I really enjoy a lot of her lyrics. The lyrics in The Good Ones especially knock me out. Her harmonies on that song with herself are great. And I thought her voice fit, again, Y2K really well. It's not that it doesn't fit the music. I think it fits the music well. It's just more of a stylistic thing for me. And really the only other complaint that I have is there's a few songs in the middle, the tail end of the record that even after a few listens, songs like Even True Love or Sure Thing, I couldn't sing a note back to you. They just were a little unmemorable to me. But Amy, I like Amy so much, I kind of want to hear it without the vocals because the bass line and groove is so well. And then when the vocals come in, it doesn't kill it for me. But even though I'm not super hot on her voice, I listened to this record 3 times and I enjoyed it more every single time. And the last 2 times were while I was driving, and I found that to be the best environment for it. And I would give it a pretty solid 3.5. I don't know if I will go back to it too much on my own accord, but if someone puts it on or if I'm in a particular mood, I definitely wouldn't have a problem listening to it again. And a couple songs on here, I'll definitely be adding some of my own personal playlists. So good job, Graham.
Thanks. Yeah, I have it at 3.5 as well. I think you might like some of the earlier stuff. The best song in their whole catalog is called Gun Shy. At least check that song out. That's actually the song that got me into them. I heard it on a local radio in Pittsburgh. But I see what you're saying about the voice. It fits the vibe more. I think that the production kind of protects her actual talent a little bit, but I am a sucker for the breathy dream pop vocals. So, but yeah, thanks.
Sure.
Thanks. Glad you liked it.
Of course.
My record that I got to listen to was Spacey and Shaken by Pete Droge, who I was familiar with from his participation in The Thorns, which was like a little folk rock supergroup with Matthew Sweet and Sean Mullins. Never checked out his records though, but I can definitely see why you recommended this for me. It's kind of like right in between. It's like the middle point between power pop and like rootsy American rock, like Petty, perfectly in the center of those things. Right off the bat, I could hear like the sort of similarities in the guitar between this record and like Girlfriend by Matthew Sweet. The guitars on this record may be a little less angular than they are on Girlfriend, and maybe a little more swirling and psychedelic, but really, really cool guitar work. Really liked it a lot. I think it was a really kind of smart pick, knowing my taste a little bit. Really like Spacey and Shaken, the song. Please the Ghost was great. Eyes on the Ceiling, song 4, I really liked. Maybe a little front-loaded, I think. I think all 4 of those standout tracks are in the first 5 songs. But overall, really liked it. We'll probably revisit it and maybe check out some other records of his. I have this at 4 stars. So yeah, very good.
Yeah, I felt very confident about it, and I'm glad you enjoyed. I can see what you mean. I think every track on that record is great, but yeah, some of the more kind of punchy rock songs up front, I could see why those would be immediately the ones that you reacted to. You recommended for me Busting Visions by Zeus, a band I have never heard of, never been familiar with at all. You thought you were going to hit a grand slam here, and you were completely right. I mean, this is like, a heroic pick. I mean, just you couldn't have gotten this one better. I mean, yeah, I mean, we can just do the ranking now. I mean, in the order we've done this, Joe, Graham, and Jason getting his first win of the series. Sorry, Joe. But yeah, unbelievable production. Very classic, but they really figured out all the right ways, kind of like you said, to add in and incorporate the modern approaches between some of the guitar tones, like the phased drums. Some of the outros on these records just take these complete shifts. Every now and then there's some songs, like what was the one in particular, With Eyes Closed, for instance. It's a very, very 60s song, and it's almost bordering on being too 60s, but then the guitar comes in, totally whacked out different tone. It's almost like they stopped themselves at the last minute from veering too far down one road. But it's a super, super diverse record. Strong Mind is a stunning song. I mean, the chorus, the transition out of the chorus, I mean, so many different parts in it. There's a lot of familiar sounds and influences across this record. I heard a lot of Big Star, a lot of almost like the Faces, the Kinks in there. but at no point could I think of another group that they sounded exactly like, which is, I think, for a lot of people, what we look for in new music, something that has a brush of familiarity, but at the same time, able to be original at the same time. I think that this record has that in spades. I think this one is also a little front loaded. The last 4 songs in particular, the last 3 really very, very British kind of twee, really good songs, but not as diverse as the first half of the record. But overall, all around excellent. I listened to this one 4 times all the way through. I will be going back to it. This is probably a 4.5 star for me right now. I don't know if it will make its way up to 5. It's not a perfect record, but highly, highly enjoyable. Yeah, you couldn't have done better on this one.
Good work, Jason. Now we're gonna have to hear about this all.
There you go. Now I want to listen to it.
Yeah.
Well, that is great to hear. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Last thing we got to do before we go is decide how your records compare to Shannon's. Before you, Spacey and Shaken by Pete Droge up against, for me, Sunburst Finish by Bebop Deluxe. I have both at 4 stars. And I think just a hair, I think Pete Droge comes in under Sunburst Finish. But they're both really good, both 4 stars.
I accept that. That's fine.
Sorry, I know you just gave me the win, but
no, it's fine. Whatever. I don't want to talk about it. I'm over it.
You'll find Jason, is one of the most ungracious people you'll ever meet in your life. No, definitely not. He's a sweetheart. So Shannon, for me, got 4 stars with her recommendation of At the Cut by Vic Chestnut. And Loner by Caroline Rose also got 4 stars. So I am giving the win to Shannon. I appreciate just a little bit of the emotional depth on this one. I'm so sorry. I did like the pop sensibilities of this one, but if you don't know this record I'm talking about, I think you would really enjoy it, the one Shannon recommended, because it's just it's an incredibly brave record to make by this particular individual, Vic Chestnut. But it was close, man. I get it. You guys like Shannon better than me. Shannon has her own YouTube channel where she ranks albums and is really good at it, really insightful and thoughtful. So whatever, I don't care.
No. Don't worry, Dylan, because I'm here to set things right. Even though you hated my pick and it was just a terrible decision by me to even suggest it, your choice of When I Think of You in a Castle by Post Malone, sorry. When I Think of You in a Castle by Post Animal, up against Shannon's pick of Bang by World Party, which I gave 3.5 stars, but it was a low 3.5 stars. This album by Post Animal, way better than that. Much rather listen to Post Animal than World Party. So yeah, you killed it with this one for me. And yes, you get the win on this.
You screwed yourself by telling 3 Steeler fans you were a Patriots fan. So that went into our subconscious immediately. So.
I understand. Look, it is what it is. I know it's difficult to watch another team win 6 Super Bowls in 20 years and just have an overwhelming run of dominance. But, maybe you guys will get back there again at some point. But no, I'm glad that you guys all enjoyed the picks. This is a super fun exercise, and just want to thank you all again for having me on the channel.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back. I mean, you know your stuff. Good vibes. Good chemistry here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm smelling full-time 4th member here. I mean, it just seems obvious. I at least would love to have some sort of, at the very least, I will leave a very in-depth comment on when eventually you do Tom Petty remastered, because I have a lot of thoughts and they will most likely be very antagonistic. So if you need someone, I got you.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming on. We had a blast. I'm sure this won't be the last that we see of Dylan on the channel. So thank you. A lot of fun. If you enjoyed the video, hit like, especially on these videos. It's a new series. We kind of want to get a feel of how much people are digging it to know if we should do more of these. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Hit the bell for notifications. Check the description for links to all of our social media accounts. And maybe I'll throw some links to some of Dylan's stuff down there as well. And yeah, we will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, everyone.